a lot to fit in. I've coded my slides, so you'll see the little icon there on the right hand side, the timer, that's when we're going to do something, and then when you can sit back and listen to my lovely St Helens accent is when I'm going to share some knowledge. It's really important, as Maslow's hierarchy, I don't know if you've seen this before, but we put our physiological needs first, so please make sure that you do what you need to do to make yourself comfortable. Okay. Brilliant. So just in the chat, what I want you to do, it was a question that I think Katerina sent out, but just reflect back for the next 5 minutes. Who was your favourite teacher, trainer or presenter, or what was the best training you've ever completed and why? So just want you to type that in the chat. Just want you to reflect back on some of those great moments. So in your own time, think about it. Might have been someone who inspired you. It doesn't have to be something formal either. It could be something that you've watched. Maybe a TED Talk, or maybe someone on the telly. Brilliant. School, someone who I didn't follow. The book, yeah, absolutely. It's more to do with life, worse than what's required for an exam. Authentic, great. That leads into leadership as well. Supportive. It's just passionate, yeah. She made you do history at uni, that's amazing. So I wonder if she knows Claire. Interesting, wider interest again, so bringing in real life examples. Yeah. Knowledge, passionate. Images, so I wonder, Michelle, if that's something that strikes you when you see good images as well, so you like to see what you're looking at, see what you're doing, see the knowledge. Genuine, enthusiastic, shared her experiences, really key. Yeah, she knew you all well. Oh, Stan Hay, who wrote a book I enjoyed, accessible, kept it real. Enthusiasm, absolutely, is infectious. Really nice, believed in us, encouraged us. What great memories. And absolutely, you know, I don't know if anyone's seen Adele, audience with Adele, but she mentioned a teacher, she mentioned the impact that she'd had. And you don't have to be an educator or a teacher to do that. Like you say, you know, it's somebody who's written a book, someone whose enthusiasm is just infectious, someone who's passionate about what it is that they're talking about, and maybe even teaching you inadvertently. So needing to sort of know what we're doing today, there's 4 things that we've looked at. Katerina and I had a discussion before. So we want to define really what adult needs, adult learners need to thrive. We're going to explore creative and interactive teaching activities, but again, this is just dissemination of information. This is just sharing knowledge. We're going to develop our knowledge of applying sound assessment methods, and we're going to explore some creative engagement and training tools. So why are we going to do this? So it may be that you already know a lot about this, we might just refresh your knowledge. We've got a nice little community here today that we can chat and share ideas with. It's going to support you to design that effective learning method. And with regards to creative and interactive teaching methods, again, it's that energy, keeping people engaged, developing innovative training experiences that people want more of. You know, I'm sure you're going to go out and buy his other book if he now writes one. And Katerina touched on the fact that there's this hybrid model. I'm going to touch on that today, so hopefully we can move with towards hybrid with more ease. assessment methods, we're going to be able to evidence effectively what we're doing. We're going to be able to say this is absolutely what we know has worked and why it's worked. And we're going to be able to triangulate that data. We're talking about, you know, how well do we know people, what they thought of it, real life examples of what happened within that environment. How are they able to tell us that they've been intrigued, we've captured their interest? You can do that through some of these training tools we'll look at today. So the first thing is I want to know more about you too. So I'm going to be leading as always. I'm just going to launch a poll. So if you can complete that really about your current practice, that would be great. It'll just give me a better understanding of yourself. So you should be able to see that then. Some of it might not apply to you. I'm aware that, as I say, I had a discussion with Katerina, kind of background of some of you, running events, not just training sessions. We apply it broadly, think about some of your answers. So hopefully you can see that on the screen. And that picture is Michelle Pfeiffer from Dangerous Minds, one of my favourite teaching films. But it's important that we do train to need. Inclusion is essential. We should always really do some sort of diagnostic. What do we need to know? And like you say, how do we personalise that so it feels as individual as possible, even if you've got 10, 15, 20 people on a session. Using Likert scales to really, you know, understand some of that is key as well. So having different choices that you can measure against as well. Brilliant. So I'm just gonna, everyone's answered, which is great. Just gonna end this now. And we can see the results. Fantastic. So this gives me real clear indication of where we're up to. And something I can use as I go forward in this session today. So what's so unique about adults? We've talked about our learning when we were younger. I just want you to, so hopefully you can see on the screen where you can annotate. It should be at the top there in options, and a little pencil. If you can't, don't worry, just pop it in the chat. But what's so unique about adults, so Knowles, Halton and Swanson say that we're difficult, that Freudian slip, different for a lot of reasons. So we need to know why. We're self-directed, we're autonomous, we want to use our previous experiences, and we talked about those real situations. We're ready to learn when learning emerges from real life. So it may be that, you know, we've got a certain bit of training that we're running or event that we're running, but if it's not going to be reflective of what I'm currently doing at the moment, am I really going to be motivated to go on to that course, that session? We're motivated to solve problems immediately, particularly if you work within health and social care. You know, it's really something I think that's embedded with people, is that we're here to solve problems anyway in our day job, and that comes across when we've learned something. And we've got strong internal motivators. We want to do better, even though external motivators can be leveraged. So I'm sure, like, Katerina, you come on this training, you know, there's an external one for you. So can you, there we go, brilliant. See some annotating. If you can't annotate, just type it in the chat which one you most relate to. Three, yeah. Brilliant. Great, lots of threes. Fab. Great, so I'm learning a lot about you already. Thank you. So when we're designing some education or information, any sort of training, I like to think about other companies that do things well. So one of my favourite companies is IKEA, just because they're totally no nonsense. They've got a lot of options for people. And you can adjust, add, change, flex to what you want. Billy the bookcase is the most famous guy in IKEA, and how many different variations are there of that? And they've designed lots of different things just to fit into your lifestyle, to what you may use, the colours, the textures, materials, you know, and that's their design thinking. And I like to apply this in a lot of the things that I do. How can I make it as flexible as possible? So there's 6 different things when we're designing any education or any knowledge sharing. So it's why and who's our audience. Absolutely what you were saying before about your favourite teachers. You know, they knew you, they knew who you were and what you would like, what past experiences you may bring. And then a really important one is, what is the level of information? What is the level of learning that we need to take place? Is this just simple information sharing, or do we need them to go away and put this into practice and give them what they need to do that? How and when are we going to deliver it? You know, how can we be flexible and inclusive? What and where? So we touched on hybrid, we touched on the equipment and resources that we may use. You know, what are we actually going to deliver on? What platforms? And why are we going to do this? Why are we checking that they've learned this? What assessment processes need to be in place? And then one that we've come for today is around innovation and creativity. So actual how, what's the method? So keep Billy the bookcase in mind. So the next thing that I want you to do, I'm going to put you into little breakout rooms, is about knowing your audience and participants. I'm showing my age. When I showed a picture of the Spice Girls, I was Posh Spice, if you wanted to know. But how well do you know your audience, and what can you do in order to understand them? What do you currently do? What are things, gaps are missing? I've put some points on here around, you know, simple questionnaires, what you've seen me do. You know, do you touch on hierarchy? We know that we've got a lot of people, there's more multidisciplinary working within the system, but who is the actual need? Who's the influencers? Who's going to be the most important people to get this information? And then how do you work down from that? Inclusivity, being relatable. And I put the Spice Girls on not just because I love them, but because it's around unconscious biases. You know, do we actually think that physiotherapists know about X, Y, and Z? Do we believe that GPs know about X, Y, and Z? What are our unconscious? So what I want to kind of move on to, and I heard this briefly from one of the rooms. I'm just going to share my screen. We're all okay there now? Yeah. So one of the things that I want to get into is around, this is Bloom's, life's work, should we say? And we were talking about at what level do they need to learn, and actually how do we get them from our participants from just understanding information, remembering information right at the bottom of our sort of learning list from Bloom, to actually start to use that, applying it, to even analyse it, and to maybe even start to evaluate and create new ways of working around this. So either mark it on the screen or type it in the chat. Which level do you find that you're either the most exposed to when you go on training sessions, that you feel is very common for you to be doing or involved in or supporting? Is it that you are providing information that people remember? Is it that you're getting them to understand that information by, you know, sort of illustrating different ways it applies to them? Are they committing to applying that information, you know, using that? How do you kind of know that? So think about those levels of education, dissemination, however you want to call it. What's most common for you to either experience, or so type it in the chat or put it on the screen, whatever's best for you. Understand, get them to apply. Brilliant. Just grab my chat. Remember. Fantastic. Kind of at the front end. Great. So it's all really about understanding up to applying information. Oh, Jane, thank you. So you are getting people to test things in practice. or you may have experienced that yourself. Great. Okay. Remember in the chat, fab. So majority of us are down at the bottom, and that's pretty common of that scale, you know, to actually give information, help people to understand, and maybe commit to how they're going to apply it. The evaluating and creating is something that will generally change their practice. However, application, again, you are still making a difference at any stage. It's just thinking about how you are sharing information and what you want them to do with it. So if you're sharing information because you really want them to create something new, you want them to go away and design and plan something different, maybe change a process, we've got to think about how we're going to start to change maybe some of the techniques that we use. If you are aiming that they just understand, that's perfect. So I'm just going to clear the screen. Thank you. So one of the things when we talk about the levels of learning is how we are also flexible and inclusive. Remember, we go back to that IKEA design. And Katarina was saying that a lot of the stuff that you can be coming up against, I know ArcFest has been mentioned as well, is around how to sort of create those inclusive environments when we're working with hybrid models now. And so what I want you to do is to, again, have another discussion about whether one will work without the other. And it seems it's quite a sort of basic question. It's quite broad as well. But it's about, you know, can we just have an all virtual environment? Can we just have a classroom environment? Maybe talk about the pros and cons of each. I just want you to reflect on the reliability and the interoperability between both of them just for another 10 minutes in your group. Just want us to reflect on, maybe use some stories, some examples where you've had a hybrid learning environment. So just share your stories, think about whether they'll work without the other. And I'm going to pop you back into the same breakout rooms again this time. And I'll type in the chat, we've got 10 minutes. Interesting conversations about the expense of it, about you know, how frequently things happen, the prep work that's involved, how to follow up with a hybrid event, different techniques, things that you've constantly got to keep an eye on, which organisations are hybrid in the study. Is that a question for me, Darren? Well, so I would say that the people that were thrown in the deep end are secondary school teachers that have had to engage at the drop of a hat at times in different environments. Now they're working extremely hybrid. So even though we can relate to some of them within an education sort of environment, actually they're still not teaching adults in the way that adults learn, are totally different. Some of the leaders within hybrid working and the software companies that are developing, and somebody mentioned it before actually, you know, how expensive these companies are, that they would come in and help you with the kit and show you how you can interact. So I would say in terms of organisations, you're talking about secondary school and you're looking at the software companies that are jumping onto this. Also universities are really good now. And just moving lovely into the next slide is a new term that you might not have heard of. It's called high flex. This is going to be another term that we'll get used to over the time, and that's about hybrid working, but actually even in a more flexible way. So this is if you've got maybe a series of 3 workshops, scheduling which ones that person's going to come into out of the 3 of them, for example. And so I'm going to touch a little bit onto this, and then I'll have a recap and a little break. I think we'll probably need that. We've done some deep thinking. So technology needs to enhance. It can't be there to get in the way of hybrid working. These are some of the things, by the way, that I've pulled out of research that you can find. Some of the papers that they've released now. Definitely, I've got some links to those so you can have a look if it interests you as much as it does me. So it can't be to to actually distract from people in terms of they still need to be focusing on what it is that they're actually doing rather than trying to get something to work. You've got to think of diversity and inclusion as well, with regards to the use of technology and also time in order to help people to learn what it is. You know, Zoom was the brand new platform. I know I'm on Zoom and it's like dead old fashioned now, and it's MS Teams. But what's the next one that's going to come out? One of the things that they've adapted to in schools is now they've got multiple screens. So they've made a financial investment to say, and commitment to say, this is the way that we're going to move forward. What would that take for the organisation that you may work for to do that? You know, in terms of a business case, what it means, cost savings. I know that the innovation agency where I've worked, I've got a brand new, extremely tech savvy boardroom, which is just fantastic. However, there's lots of glitches in terms of working as a group. So that's that one person presenting that can see everything. Very difficult to have a meeting in an environment like that. And then one of the things that you can do is give roles and responsibilities. If you've got a group like this and say we were hybrid working, you know, get people to notify of when others are asking questions, to keep an eye on that. See the illustration at the bottom is all those plates spinning. It's very difficult to do that on your own if you're leading a hybrid session. Something that's throughout the research is around how we actually present. So thinking about we're on the radio and not the TV, describing things visually for those that are online, showing people within the session, you know, having a mix of those, but remembering that ultimately we've got to describe so that people outside the event can know what it is that's happening in the room. Providing that time to adapt and set up, again, it all goes back to inclusivity. We need to make sure that people can actually be and do what they need to do. I would encourage anyone at this stage, it's very early days, I heard that throughout the groups, we all have real negative experiences or not the best experiences of hybrid working so far. And is that because we're at a change station within the sort of changeover to this new way of working now? You know, I heard someone say I went in work and then I had to go home again, you know, and there's this flexibility that we're asking for people. It can actually cause a lot of fatigue. So testing it and finding a safe space, how do you do that within ARC and within your organisation to actually say, we're going to spend an hour this week on just testing the way that these things work. Let's get a group of people together that's really interested in this, or what training's available at the moment that's free that are working on these sorts of things too. And I heard someone say, absolutely right, the prep work is key for this, to organise in advance. One of the things that I haven't heard throughout the group, and I was interested to see how you actually utilise asynchronous working. So, you know, if it's somebody presenting a piece of work, is that not would that not be more beneficial for you to record earlier and send that out rather than having that as part of, you know, an example that you gave was ArcFest? If you're managing that time and it's an expensive piece of time because you're hybrid, you're now paying for coffees and, you know, croissants, room hire, whatever that might be, how can you do that so that it's in their own time too? So high flex working is around asynchronous working too. It doesn't all have to be there in the moment. And I suppose that's the biggest benefit of hybrid working, is that yes, you've got somebody online and you've got somebody in a room, but it doesn't have to be at the same time. It can also be something that you do prep work for, or you ask for people to do after the session. Okay. Anyone want to add anything about hybrid working, high flex working? Anyone heard of high flex before? Interested to know? Shout out, talk to me.
Talking about the asynchronous stuff, Karla, that is really actively encouraged in our model now. Yeah. Because of the glitches and, you know, potential IT issues and not only that, people keep to time. And so quite, I'd say, I don't know, down, I probably have a figure, but at least 3/4 of our stuff for ArcFest is pre-record.
Brilliant.
We're already using those types of approaches and they work really well for people who, like you say, might not be able to get to an event, or so we're not reducing the number of people that we can engage with at any one time because we're doing pre-record. And then everything, of course, then goes on our YouTube channel so people can look at it if they're not able to attend as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And then the next stage of that pre-record would be, you know, get them to watch the video in their own time and then what does that mean next? If it's something that you want them to apply, could that then be, this is the pre-recording and we're going to do some hybrid working on applying that within general practice, for example. You know, you have people that turn up for that event, people that are online for that event, and then get them to work together in small groups, asking people who are attending on the day, bring your laptop in, because I'm going to be putting you in small breakout groups. You know, you're going to be using your laptop to chat to each other too.
I think
the only cultural thing, isn't it?
It is. And I think sorry, Paul, the only issue my worry with this is, you can say, just like students at the university, the lectures online, it's all streamed. We can say that, we do that with ArcFest, but you're competing all the time for other people's time. They're already looking at screens a long time. Are they going to sit and watch 40 minutes of an ArcFest session? It's just hard to kind of, you've got to make sure your messages come across in the live session, and yes, have that backup of it being available, but there's no guarantees of people's time nowadays that they're going to follow up.
Absolutely.
I agree, Darren. I was going to say the same thing. There'd be no guarantee. If you're saying to them, if there's a pre-record available ahead of time, watch that before and then we can discuss about it, I think at least 50% wouldn't actually have watched it before we have the discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really common. Doing a course myself, and I've got to admit, don't always do the pre-reading, probably 90% of the time. And what happens is I rely on my peers then who have had the time and are able then to kind of share. So there's benefits of then working in a group, probably reaching more people if you pre-record something and get them to discuss it as a group rather than pre-record it and then potentially nothing happen. And then the other thing is around something that has been heavily invested within the AHSNs is around podcasting. You are absolutely right. Screen time is a killer. And so podcasting, listening on your way home, doing other things, you know, how do you think radio, not TV? How do you get people away from the screen? You know, if that's something that we know is an issue and we're hearing more and more about. Actually, disturbingly, I heard a case of somebody who had a pressure sore that has been working from home, unbelievably. And there was a sort of, I'll share the piece with you, but, you know, a very serious reminder of how often we get up and we stretch and we move and we do what we need to do. So, you know, unbelievable stories that are coming out, and we're working faster, working harder, we've got less time between meetings, we're not moving around more. High flex working is also around not having to be in our room or in an environment. So I'll show you something around street wisdom and other things that get people actually away from it. And rather than use a laptop, is there a possibility then for another piece of technology such as your phone? How can you use that? How can you encourage people to walk as they're listening to a podcast, for example, and put some of their wellbeing agendas in place? So loads of things, but it's about sitting down and planning it, because this hybrid and high flex way of working, I believe, is going to be bigger and is going to be the way forward for most organisations now. So we'll see really interesting innovation coming out soon, and it becoming very much well established as it was using Zoom or Facebook or whatever we used at that time. But yeah, loads of challenges. How do we work together to face them? So just before we go for a little break, I just want to recap on what we've done so far in the last hour. So type in the screen or on the chat something that you remember, something that has resonated with you from what I've been through, and then once you've typed it in, instead of discussing it, let's go and have 10 minutes. Yeah, Jenny, definitely more success with a quick Jamboard, something short. Absolutely, it's very difficult to get people to read even meeting papers. My question would be, why do we have meeting papers? Do we need meeting papers? You know, Katerina, you're thinking about your influencer. Yeah, absolutely. We work in a real crazy hierarchy within health and social care, and unfortunately influencers, you know, is sort of prime for that environment. I love leadership, but I also love followership, and I love understanding, you know, how we actually influence followers too. Yeah, brilliant, Darren. Please pop off and stretch and brew. Please do. Once you've written in the chat, be great. Doing well for time. Design, yeah, Paula, absolutely. And that comes across when I heard you talking about multidisciplinary teams, who needs to be there, what the gaps, who's missing. Yeah, total. Psychologically safe. People will be going to your events, won't they, saying, oh, this is a hybrid event, oh, what can I learn from this? Everyone's learning from it. It's whether you're going to be a fast follower or whether you're going to be that innovator, I suppose, what the space is. Yeah, how do we know who our audience is? Yeah, fab. And what are their goals? What are they trying to do? Yeah, managing expectations, absolutely. Thanks, Pallavi, brilliant. Once you've done it, pop off. Katerina, go and have a little break if you need to. No, you okay? Feedback okay? Anything that you want to change for the second half? Do you feel, Katerina?
I mean, it depends what everyone else thinks. I think we've been talking a lot about the ArcFest, which is our common shared event.
Okay.
But obviously everybody in their themes will also have workshops or seminars or some of us podcasts or whatever they're running. So it's up to everyone to give feedback and, you know, change this. I mean, I think it's good that we're
how are we gonna change? How are we going to sort of help people as well accept change, and this is how, and make them feel comfortable, make them feel engaged and inclusive. And absolutely nobody has got time really to do very much, and we're seeing that across some of our programs too, that people are emailing us, I'm really sorry, this is another priority, and they definitely are. But if we remember those adult learning priorities and rules that I've looked at through research, adults will learn when they need to also. So it might be that you're collecting data on that day of how many people have watched that great webinar from Pete Dixon. Oh, it was amazing. But then, you know, 4 weeks down the line, loads more people are watching it then. Because actually now this thing that Pete was talking about a month ago, it's real hot topic and you're a month early. And I think it was Jenny that was talking about, when is the system ready? How do we kind of know that? So, you know, again, do we know it's really successful? And what are we measuring? Is it just at that time it was, you know, really successful? Or do we know that 6 months down the line, now everyone's watching what Pete said, you know, because actually this is where they're up to as an organisation. So it's about thinking broader than just the day or the session, and that high flex working is definitely something people will pick up on. They might not have read the video, watched the video or done the pre-reading there and then. So does that help anybody think a bit more, less laterally about the day? Good, that's great. And I can't do thumbs down on YouTube either, so you won't feel, you know, be like gutted if someone gives you a thumbs down, because you can't see it, and you can just post videos about loads of stuff and they'll never really know. They should do that about everything. So let's get back to where we're up to. We've done our recap. Fabulous. So all of this is nothing without assessments, hybrid learning, how we're going to make it interesting, how we're going to capture people. So in the chat, on the screen, interpretive dance, how do you check for learning and understanding at the moment? Is it that you ask for a questionnaire before and after? Is it that you contact them 6 months later and say, what did you make of that? Is it that you they can give you evidence of how they've embedded it into practice? Is it a long-standing program that you could eventually build into something? How do you check for learning? How do you check for understanding? Is it that you can see them looking at you like, I have no idea what's going on, or that they're nodding, or like thumbs up, you know, anything? Think about formal, informal, think about summative at the end, think about formative as you're going along. Brilliant. Making contact with people after the session. What type of questions do you ask them, Paul, or is it more of a conversation?
I think I was going to just typing something else in there. I think it's part of the design of the session, isn't it? Encouraging people to be present in the session. You know, use the chat, I think the chat's the most unused thing. You know, we all talk about Google Meets and blah, blah, when, you know, if the tech's failing, the chat's a really useful way of people staying connected if they can't do the other bits, you know, like as you've been doing. So in our sessions, you know, encouraging people to ask questions, encouraging people to query, always giving a contact if they want to learn more, you know, things where they can contact you after the session.
Yeah. There was a really nice piece of research about, there's a company that actually offer email notifications, and they build it into their training, like e-platform. So you'll do, I don't know, the one we all love, fire training, and then they'll say to you, you know, I'll send 4 emails after the session for the next 6 months, and it'll just be, you know, don't forget, grey is for electrical, you know, don't forget, or like a little short poll, get them to click on it, send it back, see if the learning stayed with them. They talk about a lot about remembering, you know, 10 times the 10 rule, talk for 10 minutes, experience things 10 times. You know, I'll try and find the name of the company. They are, again, expensive, but definitely the ethos that they would, you know, they try to use. Let's have a look what we're looking for. Informal cues, absolutely, really important. It always makes a difference if you're doing something online to have 2 screens as well, so you can see everyone's faces. Evaluation survey, yeah, being notorious about agreeing actions, brilliant. Explain notorious, Katerina.
Well, it's just those meetings where everybody ends up saying, oh, it's great, yeah, we should work on this together, and then, you know, everybody goes back to their own world, and that never happens. So it's like, if we actually agree we need to do something, okay, when and who will do what, let's agree that now. So if we're going in a meeting which is or a workshop that has a specific target rather than just disseminating information, then just making that clear, and again, you know, at the end agreeing whatever it is in a clear way. Yeah,
build that into what you're learning, give them 30 minutes at the end, you know, all of that. How do you factor time? You know, if it's, what are the reasons why that's not being done? Is it because it's unrealistic for them? Is it because it's not the right person? They might just be there on the day. You know, there's lots of things, again, that could happen with that. So yeah, definitely pinning it down. If it's not you, who will it be? Brilliant. So remember this guy? Guys, do you remember his name? Anybody? The guy who invented this? You know him.
Bloom?
Bloom.
I was going to say, was it Blooming Egg?
So he split it down into, it was Blooming Egg. He split it down into 6 different categories. So remember, understand, apply, analyze. Let's have a look. Brilliant. Oh, thanks, Katerina. Sorry. So we've looked at it, and we said, didn't we, before, it's a lot of remembering, a lot of understanding, a little bit of applying, sometimes evaluating. So what I've put forward today is, because assessment is so key to understanding, collecting data as well, and also to experiences, is I've pulled together this slide, and so under each of them are ways in which you can assess that align to the different types of learning. So if you want people to remember, you can do fill the blank sort of evaluations, label something, multiple choice, think about e-learning, for example. And get them to understand something, you know, give them a problem, how would they do that, get them into group discussions, so someone mentioned Jamboard before, get them even to highlight some key bits. Getting them to apply information is a little bit more so of an investment for them. So determine how an appropriate solution for a given task. So rather than providing someone an easy way to do this with a lot of information, is giving them a problem statement. So it may be that you know how to make a Victoria sponge cake, but the problem that you've got is, I've got these ingredients, I've got 6 people to feed. They all love cake. What are you going to do? And get them to come back with a solution. And that way, they're thinking about solving a problem and applying the knowledge. And that's how you get them to quickly flip it on its edge. So I'm going to go into more of these assessments, but these are just some of the ways in which you can inject them. Case studies, fantastic. You'll hear me mention little bits throughout the day of things that I know about, examples. But if you give someone a case study and get them to debate it, concepts, think about, you know, some of the quality improvement stuff, fishbone diagrams, all that kind of stuff, then they're going to be analysing it. Give them a case study, I don't know, of the Titanic, what happened, what was the cause, what was the problem. They'll go away and plan that together, get them to use a tool, get them to work around a tool, and you're going to get them analysing. In terms of evaluation, we're going further up again, more effort from your participants, getting them to debate something. I did that today quite simply with debate hybrid working. What does that look like? You know, they're evaluating it, they're thinking about what it means, for them. Insists on flowcharts, absolutely. Darren, I'm their biggest friend. I definitely think flowcharts teach people, you know, Jamboards, MS Teams, all these online stuff that's emerging, loads of tips and things that people have put together on YouTube about how to use online learning platforms, great stuff. And then the biggest thing is about creating. So, you know, you were talking, Katerina, about notoriously pinning something down, SMART goals, you know, getting somebody to write a SMART goal, achievable. Is it achievable for everybody? What, you know, maybe 1 or 2 parties want to achieve? Is it that, again, think about the timing. It could be the wrong time for them, that this session's just emerged for them. Their organisation, like you was mentioning before, may not be systematically ready for that. And research projects, give a question, come back in with your research, how you're going to apply that to your own practice. So the next thing that we're going to look at, is about some of the teaching methodologies that I've just touched on a little bit. So if you want to put a little mark on or put it in the chat, which ones you're most used to using, learning, experiencing. So teacher-centered, think TED Talks, centre stage, chat. It's easily managed, it can be recorded, it's simple. There's lots of knowledge transfer, it's quick, it can be asynchronous, you can record it, send it 6 months later. Here's a reminder, do you remember this? Project-based learning, think Bake Off, Great British Bake Off. They work at it, they experiment, they explore it, and then they come together and they do, you know, the showstopper. But they've developed their own research skills to find those solutions out. They've embedded that in practice. They know they've got to do a showstopper. This is what the constraints are. Go away and do that learning. And then a flipped learning environment. You've talked about the pre-reading, you know, recording already. We kind of know what that is. Think about your driving theory test. So you can't do your practical without your theory. It gives more time during the session. Students should be more prepared, and as I said before, they can catch up via the peers if needed. The biggest thing about flipped learning is the research shows it's actually the most flexible way of learning for the student. So these are the benefits that they're sort of talking about. There's like food mentioned in everything as well, isn't there? Bake Off again, cakes. But these are kind of what it means, the benefits of them. But we always know that on the flip side, there's a negative side. This is Kimball off Kindergarten Teacher. Do you remember that film? So I'm going to put you into activities again, just the next 10 minutes. And I want you to think about what some of the restrictions are of these. So if it was all teacher-centered, if it was all project-based learning, if it was all flipped learning, you might want to take a photograph of this screen. I will type them in the chat as well, so you've got them. Just give you a couple of seconds to take a photo if you need to. So what are the benefits? I've provided you with some of those. But what are the actual restrictions? So what are the restrictions to your audience? Which one method do you gravitate towards and why? And what would you do to explore a new method? So if your piece of work that you was working on was all teacher-centred, how would you then try and make it into a project base, keep it fresh for people? So you've got 10 minutes. I'm going to just mix up your breakout rooms. So bear with me 1 second. Has anyone got any questions so far? Anybody? Is anybody, let's have a look, we've got everybody there. Just need to, yeah, because we had Claire. Okay, so you should have a different room now that you're going to go into. And I'll pop something in the chat now for you. So think about the restrictions. Everyone got the methodologies there? Yeah, cool. Teacher-centred, project-based. Why does that? Oh, more challenges, more things that were surfacing. Fantastic. Oh, I've got to do all of these things for everyone to be happy. It's just so difficult, isn't it, to find the right blend? And yeah, really great. I was listening through some of the difficulties of each of the learning methods that you will find, and absolutely agree there's pros and cons with everything. And how do we know it's working? When do we revisit it? It's a lot more effort, a lot more time involved in that planning. So yeah, lots to think about. So we talked about, let's just recap where we've been today. We've been everywhere. So we've talked about, excuse the flicking through. So what's unique about adult learning? You know, we know they want to know why. Why are they here? Why am I spending the next 40 minutes or the next 2 hours listening to this intelligence girl talking to me about teaching methods? You know, what's the purpose of it? What's going to change for me? What's going to change for the people that I work with? We know that if we apply an IKEA way of thinking, we can make it more flexible. We've got all of these things that we can offer, you know, so we've talked about, you know, throughout the whole session, really, the audience, participants are key. The level of information and learning, we've talked about flexibility and inclusivity, along with the equipment and resources. We've talked about hybrid, agile working, what that means for people. We spoke about the assessment. Why do we need to make sure that aligns? Why do we need to check our learning and where they're at? And so the next kind of phase is really about creativity and how to inject some of that into the sessions that you run. What does that look like? So we've looked at audience participants, blue in it. We've looked at the inclusive environments, hybrid, high flex working. So everyone will know that you're on top of your game now if you start talking about high flex working. Assessments that align to Bloom. So I've actually produced a lot more based on this. So there's another presentation that I'm going to give to Katerina to disseminate to you. So under each one is a way that you can actually capture some of that learning. The teaching methodologies, we talked a lot about teacher-centred and what that kind of means. It's easily managed, but also there's there's a great chance of them not really engaging with just a video or just content. And we looked at some of the restrictions. So, might have seen this before. This is your comfort zone. This is where magic happens. I believe that's a professor from Harry Potter, who's also a teacher. And so what I want you to do is just, I've picked out 9 of my favourites that I go to, a teaching activity, and I just want someone to shout out one they know least about. We've got the next 15 minutes to look through some of these creative teaching activities that you may know about, you may not know about. I'm just going to share some of the ways in which I think work best for my own experience. Again, there's more of these. I've put a separate presentation together for things that you can go away and try and explore and see what works best for you. So we've touched on a couple of them, but if you want to, anybody shout one out that you're most intrigued about?
Street wisdom.
Street wisdom. Okay. So street wisdom is a concept that was born to really get people out onto the street, to create a community feel. And what street wisdom does is it asks people to think about a problem that they're dealing with. So it could be, I'm not getting any engagement from community staff nurses on my training. And what it gets you to do is to go out and reflect. It can be for 15, 20 minutes. You have a set of 4 different questions that you ask that person over that duration, and they use what they see to actually answer some of that stuff. So what they're drawn to. I'm just going to show you their website too, so you can see more. This is a national and international movement. I've done this before on one of my sessions and it worked really well. It got people away from the desk. We used phones. It was a little bit touch and go at one point when somebody accidentally tripped up because they were watching the screen rather than they just had the headphones in. So, you know, there's some definite things, instructions that you need to give to people before you get them on this journey. But this is the website. It's called Inspiration on the Go. Hopefully you can see this. Give me a nod. Yep. Brilliant. So everyday creative practice, and they say it's a fusion of mindfulness, neuroscience, wellness, and unlocks your mind. So we often get into like an unproductive state, and what this is actually doing is resetting people. So at the start of every session, how I would embed this into something is, say you've got ArcFest, people dial in via MS Teams or Zoom if they've got it on the phone. Again, you might just have to leave it for people who've got access to a phone. People that can do that might be an additional thing, and you would guide them through this as they walk for the next half an hour with a problem, and use this as part of something that they can do. This idea, and the first time I used it was from Collaborate Out Loud. They do a lot of work around collaboration, community engagement, and it's something that they use you know, often. So I can't remember the last time that I walked without having a destination in mind, by James Kirk. Something quite scary that you may not have used before, but definitely helps people to be productive and think about problems in a new way. So I would give it a go. They also have international days where there's just hundreds of thousands of people across the world doing street wisdom at a time. It's quite an up and coming movement. So what do you think? Anybody that would feel confident in doing a street wisdom?
I've done one. Well, in fact, I've done more than one. Yeah, they're really powerful. Yeah, because I've done some stuff with Collaborate Out Loud, so we've worked with them before.
Virtually?
Pardon? No. In city centre Manchester. No, I've not done it virtually. That'd be a bit weird, I think, because my sense is, well, you're really powerful, telling you to look up or look down, you know, because you're not seeing things. Everything's on an eye level, but it is really weird, the types of stuff that you think about in such a short space of time.
Absolutely. And if you're on the phone, you've got everyone on mute, somebody is just giving those instructions as you go along. It works really well. It's really good. Enjoyed it.
So does there have to be other people around?
No, you'd be on your own.
Oh, right. Okay, that's good. There's not many people where I live.
Yeah. So, that's fine.
I'm just starting to think, who am I going to talk to?
So Paula, how did you find, what were some of the things that surfaced with people's problems? Do you remember any?
Well, I was on my own. Somebody was showing me how to do it if I wanted to train to do it.
Huh?
Yeah, and where we were, I'm a big football fan, so he deliberately got me to meet in Beswick because I follow City. So that, because he was basically saying it, he was trying to, because I was quite a naysayer, saying, "Oh, I'm never gonna. I just want to talk." No, you won't take me out of my comfort zone. And so he took me to a place that he knew that I'd be able to talk and think about straight away and not be looking for negatives. So it worked for me, the actual place where I went to do the street wisdom activity. As opposed to, but there was only me. But he offers it out free. This guy who I've done it with, just to rock up.
I think actually they do. If you go on the website, I mean, how great would that be for a street wisdom, connoisseur to lead that, and it would just literally be on your phone, get them half an hour and feedback, after that, getting them to solve problems. Absolutely. So yeah, street wisdom, recommend. And you've got Paula there; she's an expert too. So give me another one. Which other one have you not heard of before or you'd like to know more about?
I've heard of fish bowls, but not fish bone.
You've heard of?
Fish bowls, but not fish bone.
Oh, so fishbone diagram. So this is one that I spoke about before. There's a really nice little lab that you can look at online. It gives you templates for free. A lot of what we do tends to be around solving problems. So the fishbone diagram is great because, so you might recognize it now, all these templates are free. But what you get somebody to do is to insert a problem and then to think about some of the categories. So it might be that particular topic that you've got is around health inequalities. You make it even smarter, health inequalities and some tellings, particularly for people with mental health, the ages of whatever. And then you get them to pick categories and have a discussion. And as they do that, they can populate it. So if you've got a Google Jamboard, you can put this as your background and get people to add on post-its of some of the things that they actually can problem solve. So the premise of this is to use quality improvement tools as you go along. So where you're saying it's difficult for people to apply it in practice, sometimes we're just telling them, if this is what we're saying this talk is about, it's about this problem, they can then go away with a template that guides the work, guides the feedback. So I love Fishbones for this because it is all about solving that specific problem. And then you've got all those ideas coming forward to say, you might have a physio in the room, you might have an administrator in the room, you could have a patient in the room, and they would all see these problems differently too. So you come out with a real collaborative piece of work about what some people think the smaller problems are that are leading up to this. So I would definitely recommend this site, download it, use it as a template, and you can get people to populate some of the ideas where they think the smaller problems lie. Brilliant. Anybody done a fishbone diagram before for their own? No. Oh, I'll have to do a fishbone day. It's brilliant. Okay, last one maybe. Liberating Structures. Yeah. Which one did you say? Liberating Structures. Oh, brilliant. Okay, so the next slide, you'll see this is an eco cycle. It's one of the liberating structures. There's 33 of them in the menu. They help to provide more inclusivity in conversations. I heard it throughout today actually around, if people are more shy, if people are creating echo chambers, that they're having smaller breakout rooms and breakout rooms. These are a great way to stop that from happening. It's supposed to eradicate hierarchy. There's 33 of them on the site and you can choose them for whatever. I, however, would recommend downloading the app, the Liberating Structures app, because it actually tells you how to implement it and for what reason. This is something that we use regularly. So you imagine on here, you can annotate, or again, if it's on a Google Jamboard, you can pin it up. If you're face-to-face, print it off, put it on a flip chart, get people to put post-its on, hybrid, one in the room, one on the screen. And what you do is you look at your projects, where things are up to in the system. So renewal is the place that ideas are just surfacing, so I have hybrid working there. The poverty trap, what's kind of missing, what you need to water it for it to grow. That could be resources, finance. And then you've got at the bottom there birth, so it might be that there's an idea that's just about to be born. Maturity, you might have a project. So for example, ArcFest, it's been running for a really long time. Is it reached its mature stage? What's the rigidity around it now? So we know that the landscape is always changing, so they're represented by the mountains. It's rigid, the environment might be rigid. Or is it something that is just has been mature, we've got past the rigidity stage, and now we just want to creatively destroy it. We want to bring it back into that renewal stage. So this is just one of the liberating structures, and you can see the really creative tools, gets people thinking about lengths of projects. For example, it might be that you have a session on let's think, what's it, mental health services within a particular area, and it could be that you look at all of those services, where they're up to, what's just surfacing through instant tellings, what are ideas about mental health provision, what's actually just starting, what's always been there that's mature, what's now going to be changed, and you can actually plot something out. So again, I'll just show you their website. All the links are on my slides. This is they run loads of sessions for the Q network around using liberating structures, so there's actual training sessions on them as well, so you can take part in a lot of these before you actually go live with them. There's some that you can use as part of introducing other people to it, you know, as the start of your sessions. So this is the site, and you can see that there are 33 of them when I find my mouse. Hey. So this is the menu. So a great one to minimize disruption is 1, 2, 4 all around hierarchy. So you reflect initially, share it as a pair, share it as a 4, and then bring it back together as a group. So definitely have a look at liberating structures. As I said to Katerina, we only had 2 hours today, but hopefully those 3 will show you a little bit of some of the creative things that you can do. Just one that I really love is student-led questioning. So it's actually getting people to ask other people questions rather than inputting around solutions. So if I was to say, Katerina, can you ask Paula a question based on what you've learned today that she would know the answer to? Then Katerina might say something like, how many teaching principles are there for adult learning? And Paula would go, 6, of course. And then Paula would then ask someone else a question. Yeah. Cool. So we've got a few minutes left. That's all. Oh, this is another one of my favourite, the blob tree. This was made by speech and language therapists, so you can get people to actually map out where they are. What I want you to do is, from this bit, we're at the end, is these are some of the other backgrounds that I created as well. We're out of time, but you'll get these later. Is just what has impacted you most today. So as you're gonna write on there, what's impacted you most, and then I've just got a poll before we finish. As people are doing that, has anyone got any questions that they want to ask me? Anything that they are still sort of thirsty to know? Leapfrog tools or activities for away days. Okay, best activity for an away day is the swimming pool area. Have you seen the swimming pool before? Yeah. Are you in the changing rooms? Are you?
Oh no, we've not. I thought you meant when you say at the end of a session, where do you think you will be? Are you at the deep end? I've not done from the changing rooms. Like walking. Are you on the sun lounger?
Yeah.
Are you drinking a cocktail at the bar? Are you diving in backwards off the diving board, or are you still paddling in with your rubber ring on and your armbands on?
That's really good. Also drawing each other, so getting them to actually just spend 5 minutes chatting and drawing. We've also got some questions that are about deeper dives into understanding each other. So what questions like, you know, what drew you to be in the current job that you're in at the moment? Some real nice curated questions that I can send over to you. And you can also find out, use ones that are, you can choose which ones you want to ask or you want to be asked as well, so it's not too difficult to put people in a situation. More conscious and planning. So resources are just everywhere in terms of how to teach, what to do, how to engage people. There are just lists upon lists, great podcasts, lots of websites. So again, you can see all those, and I suppose today is the commitment to kind of try those. And the last thing that I just wanted to do was to just revisit these, just so that I can understand how it's gone today and what we could kind of put into some of the other resources. Anyone else got anything that they're really keen to ask?
It's not a question, but just around that idea of resources, and obviously some of us will have used some of them. It just makes me think, if we had enough, like, I don't know, an ongoing Padlet or a Jumboard or whatever it needs to be, where we can say, this is the link to the resource, key thing it does is this, and then underneath a name of who's used it, if you want to ask a colleague for experience of how it was.
Great idea.
There's loads out there.
Great idea.
Creating a resource for us.
Yeah, or also been on this session and this is what they did, and this would work really well, or and this was the lead of that person.
Exactly. And then when you have a workshop to plan, you have a brainstorming backdrop to go to and say what might be useful, rather than starting from scratch each time.
Yeah. And I suppose today is a commitment of, like you say, trying things, finding a safe space or creating a safe space to try them. Brilliant. So, that's great. So yeah, just the rest of the poll. What time are we on? 1 minute over. So you should have that on your screen. That's great. And then another thing is that I would definitely encourage you to do is to, I've got ready for you as well in the background a peer assessment form, so you can actually give feedback on, if you do try this in a safe space, that person who's attending is specifically looking for certain things. And we tend to do this regularly within our practices, and it's all about really, making it better, but wording it in the right way, so it's constructive. So, this is how I found it, this is what I thought worked, this is what we could kind of do better, bearing in mind it's from their perspective.
Are we still offering that as a homework, Karla?
Yeah, absolutely. Should we do that as a separate email yeah? So, one of the things that I did regularly, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit over. One of the things that I did regularly was we held micro teachers. So we would swap with somebody. So I would say, me and you, Michelle, we're going to be buddies on this. And I would say, right, here's an hour in the diary. This is what I'm going to do. What do you think of it? And then we would give each other feedback. So after today, commit to one person. So pick your person. Shall I pair you up? Or would you like to independently choose them? Should I pair you up? Should I just go for it? Yeah. So Claire and Pete, Jenny and Jane, Darren and Catalin. And then who? Yeah. Has someone just left?
Paula, she just had a meeting.
Oh, Paula. So we might have three then, if that's okay. So Pallavi, Michelle and Paula. That's everyone, isn't it? Jane, did I give you someone? Yes. Yeah.
You didn't give me someone.
So sorry, Pallavi and Katerina, and then Michelle and Paula. So what I want you to do is to plan in over the next couple of weeks. You're going to do a little session on something, and using the feedback form that I'll give to Katerina that I've designed, you're going to provide some peer feedback to each other. That's the one action. Just deliver a safe space, create that yourselves and think about it. Put an hour in the diary in the next 3 weeks, and we'll email you and see how it goes. Pete, are you okay? Was you going to say something?
No, yeah, I was just going to say I'm taking industrial action for most of the next 3 weeks, so that's going to be quite difficult.
After, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Is that all right? So whenever you need to, really, yeah. You let me know. Yeah. Okay, Katerina, are you okay to share my email with everybody?
Yeah, absolutely.
And please reach out. I hope you found it useful today. I hope you have. Brilliant. Thanks so much, everyone. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. You take care.
Thanks, Karla.
Thank you, Karla.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thanks
coming,
very
everyone.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Nice, just